I made a candle for my wife over dinner on our fifth wedding anniversary, along with the present she had always received. I expected she would be shocked, but all I received that night was a straightforward "I have to go" line. The following morning, while on a business trip, I finally had a chance to look at her anonymous social media account. Oh, I see. To go hiking in Nepal with Mr. Gray, whom I've admired since I was 19. I'm Rockefeller. And when Anna got back from her vacation, I used to enjoy fishing, and it gave me a sense of accomplishment that words could never express. However, Anna disliked it since I would frequently bring up that fishy smell, which caused her to wrinkle her nose I attended less frequently after being married, but I didn't want to continue making concessions to Anna. George, I've been so busy at work that I forgot our conversation. She walked up and gave me a gentle hug. Her voice had a note of childishness. I pinched my lips together and calmly said, "It's fine, work comes first." On our fifth anniversary the other day. "You can go look for the gift you got me, Anna. It's already on the vanity." Glanced slightly, surprised that she had expected me to act as though I constantly teased her before addressing her directly. The present to lift her spirits, but the truth was that I wasn't as composed as I seemed over her adultery on the morning of our anniversary. I went to the LV store early and purchased the bag Anna had always desired, concealing it cautiously in the shoe cabinet so that it would be the first item she removed when she returned. After seeing that, I quickly went home and started preparing her favorite steak lighting, candles specifically for the event. Everything was prepared, and the thrill and expectation were maintained. Growing, and I kept imagining her startled response. But she hurried in without even trying to get dressed. When she emerged with a suitcase in tow, her shoes ignored me and headed straight toward the bedroom. I stood by the door as George dropped the bombshell, saying, "The company has an urgent matter. I have to go on a business trip." I felt a little dejected as I cleaned up the dinner by myself while watching her go farther away. But I could understand the significance of her work. Therefore, I promised myself that I would give her the present when she returns. But I eventually had a chance when I received an automated push message from her social media the following morning. To go hiking with Mr. Gray, a man I've adored since I was 19, in Nepal. I don't regularly check social media. Anna normally tinkers with my phone, and I never mind because she enjoys it. But this time I couldn't resist clicking on it, and the picture immediately made my eyes hurt. I had the impression that Anna was kissing a stranger beneath a snow-capped peak. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and the world was falling apart. My heart felt like it had been struck by a hammer, paced anxiously, bewildered, furious, and extremely depressed. My mind was racing with unanswerable questions, so I kept phoning Anna to inquire as to why she wasn't on a business bus trip, who this man was, and what their connection. But each time I called, the answer was outside of my service region, so I kept. Eventually, while perusing her anonymous social media account, I found that Henry Gray is the man's identity. Anna's first love was recorded by her anonymous account, each and every aspect of their relationship, from how they first met to how they fell in love to the present. Post read, perhaps the long-forgotten flutter of my youth had vanished, but when it reappeared, I felt like I was 19 all over again. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss more. I continued looking at the picture, feeling as though it was taken 3 months ago. I had a weird feeling that I had seen this man before. Where had I seen him? Anna. He might have been the first to notice how cold I was. Began attempting to engage George in conversation. "Are you going fishing? If not, don't go. I'm exhausted from this business. Hey, you have no idea how irrational the client's expectations were. I'm starving." I felt a rush of annoyance come over me as I listened to her talk endlessly. "So please make me something to eat." Ordered takeout and replied almost indifferently. Anna appeared surprised that I would turn her down because we got married. Always the one to concede, I shrugged her embrace away and left the room without turning around. As soon as my supervisor George, who knew you as well as I did, answered the phone as I walked outside. "I must re-ask, are you certain you want to move to France? Your skills are perfectly suited there. However, you've rejected me several times due to your wife. Have you given this much thought?" "I've considered it. Although I strongly stated that I would not be changing my decision, the business has been growing. Had been searching for the ideal individual to spearhead their 6-month-long entry into the French market. intended to formally move us there in a month. The business had always acknowledged my skills and been keen to recruit me. At one point, I was enticed by promotions and raise, which are every man's fantasy, but I had rejected them. But the business persisted in trying to get me to change my mind before everything was decided, that if I didn't take advantage of this chance, it would go to someone else when Anna. When she was little, her grandparents were the only ones who noticed how lonely she was. After her parents separated and began other families, took her in and brought her up. Now, Anna had to take care of her grandmother, so she wouldn't go. I still recall the night I informed Anna that she was being offered a job in France, but she had consumed too much alcohol. With tears in her eyes, she's looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. George, will you also abandon me like my parents did when I was a child? Didn't want me? Grandma needs me. And if you go, we'll end up divorcing. Every time Anna and I got into a fight over the years, I was the one who had to apologize and patch things up because she knew how much I loved her. Always return. And I did. I had always considered how alone Anna would be if I left, and I couldn't handle it. However, it ended up being a betrayal, and I would never want a future sacrificed for her again. When my supervisor heard my forceful response, he eventually relaxed and said, "The company will provide you a flight to..." When I arrived home from fishing in France at the end of the month, I immediately showered Anna. "George, let me see whether you cleaned up well." She's wearing a sensual lace nightgown, and her face is full of feminine allure. I couldn't help but wonder whether she had done this with another man while traveling for work. I shook my head, saying, "No, it's too late today." The notion came to me like a cold shower of water, swiftly squelching whatever desire I had. Anna must have realized I wasn't interested in her when I looked away from her, so she threw me around out of rage. "What's wrong, George? Are you still upset over what happened last time?" As I previously mentioned, it was merely a friendly college reunion, and I was simply catching up with some old friends, and when I overindulged in alcohol, my friend saw I wasn't feeling well and wanted to look after me. As she talked, I at last recalled the location where I had seen that man 3 months prior. Anna, who is typically a very elegant woman, asked me to assist her in making a decision when she attended her college reunion. A dress I put aside my work and meticulously selected one after another because my wife is so stunning and getting married to you is... She couldn't stop laughing, so she cued my face and asked, "Why are you? You're my favorite wife, and I want to offer you the best." So I just grinned and touched her nose. I tried to give Anna everything I could since I genuinely cared about her and her early years. Looking back now, I assisted my wife in selecting the most exquisite dress for her first date, which Anna wore after realizing how ridiculous everything was. By midnight, when she hadn't returned, I began to get the red dress I had picked out for her to wear to the reunion. Concerned calls remained unanswered, and I was frantically trying to locate her. Then my phone rang, and I answered it right away. "Where are you, Anna? I'll come fetch you." A strange woman called. "Are you Anna's husband? She's intoxicated. Could you come?" I pulled on my coat and hurried out the door to grab her because I'm her friend. I got to a KTV after following the directions, and as soon as I entered, I noticed Anna in the A's, a man. I could feel the rage and anxiety in the arms of a stranger. The other man's intentions could be that I hurried over, pushed him away, and picked Anna up to go, but he halted me. I'm Anna's, and I think the flashing lights made it difficult to see his face. I asked my suspicious-looking husband, "Who are you?" And he gave me a small laugh. "I'm Henry, a close friend of Anna's." Said it in such a personal way that I felt a spike in annoyance. But I wasn't paying much attention at the time because I simply wanted to get Anna home as soon as possible. Back at home, observing an inebriated Anna, I was both irritated, and I cooked some hangover soup, set up a garbage can, and cleaned her up helplessly. That was my first time meeting Henry, and it was also likely the beginning of their reunion. You weren't feeling good, so I couldn't help but ask why he was hugging you. When trust is lost, everything changes, past, present, and future, and I begin to question Anna's voice. Eventually, you started to mistrust me, and I do doubt you. Why does he look after you, and not someone else? I sounded angry with every syllable, as if it were Anna's cheeks paled as she gritted her teeth her eyes filled with anxiety and uneasiness. "You've never been this way before." Her voice quivered before, obviously shocked by my unexpected fury. May have assumed that since I now knew about Henry Anna, his tone had changed to one of warmth. I truly just consider him to be a routine friend now. And other from the fact that nothing has transpired between us, he and I are in the she attempted to explain, but I didn't feel the fire in my chest go out, believe her any longer, since it appeared she was still unaware that I had viewed her anonymous account. Anna continued to speak. "I already have. Why would I need anyone else if I had a good husband like you?" I really wanted to laugh, but it wasn't for laughs. I didn't want to hear any more of it, so I reasoned that you wouldn't confess until I saw you two in bed together. After hearing her phony justifications, I got up and went to the guest room, where I could hide behind the door. I could barely hear Anna sobbing. This was the first time I'd argued with her without going to console her because I was exhausted. We started by the fifth day. Our quiet war had been waged in silence, and without the use of words. "Are you finished with the job I made?" Anna may have anticipated that cooking would help to diffuse our anger. With a tinge of optimism in her voice, Anna shouted out, "Come eat your favorite dishes." I set down my briefcase. After we got married, I experienced a range of feelings as I gazed at the table, laden with all the foods I adore. Had hardly ever allowed Anna Cook to tell me that marriage wasn't about limiting her freedom. Being with me wasn't about letting her just prepare meals. I wanted her to do anything she wanted, George. I apologize. Gone too far the previous time, Anna tugged. "Look, I'm cooking for you. Will you forgive me?" If this had happened earlier, I would have gladly forgiven her for trying to act adorable at my arm. I treasured the unique. I believed it was crucial to be kind and forgiving with my wife during the times when Anna showed me kindness. However, these days, everything that used to make me feel valued and content suddenly stopped mattering. I tortured myself by reading every word of her anonymous account over and over again during the Cold War. She had written Henry without skipping a single comment, examining each picture in detail and repeatedly dissecting it. He has a poor stomach, doesn't eat healthily, and is really underweight, which worries me a lot. With all my heart, I prepared some food for him while watching over him, and now he has regular meals in his stomach. These words of compassion cut my heart, and I am the reason that the sufferings have diminished. I felt like a robber coming up on someone with a sudden stomach issue. Does anyone know what to do? My heart feels like sharp thorns. It felt like I was watching their happy lives and her love for me from behind the screen. She would gaze at me pityingly and throw me a single, poor, and inconsequential piece of sugar from her pocket, which made my heart hurt. I was breathing heavily, so Anna pulled me into the chair and continued to feed me while she waited for a reaction. I rarely eat your cuisine since it's so delicious, yet I haven't forgiven or rejected her. Of course, when I was in college, I used to cook a lot. Anna appeared to grasp something and stopped talking. I asked the cook a lot out of weak ignorance, but Anna quickly changed the topic because I was unable to eat anymore. I turned and went off to work feeling really confused and hurt. I didn't know how to go with this marriage, so I ignored Anna's barrage of texts that afternoon after work. Anna was waiting in her car downstairs at my office. She was staring at the folks arriving with hollow eyes. As she left the building, her eyes were red and puffy from sobbing, and she asked me right away, "George, do you—" Her voice wavered with anxiety and uneasiness as she explained why she didn't want me anymore. Don't you realize that my voice just conveyed intense agony and bewilderment in Anna's mind as she pressed me for an answer to ease her anxiety? What would you do in this situation? Would you forgive or walk away? Let me know in the comments below. When a phone call abruptly cut off the conversation, Anna grew agitated. She picked up the phone, but I could still see her turn her head slightly when she realized I wasn't staring at her. Henry was on the screen, and my chest began to burn with rage once more. Couldn't help but pay attention to their chat. I caught snippets of Anna's agitated, worried voice. "I'm hurting. Can you come?" Anna gave me a tense look and added, "George, I have to go take care of my friend's problems because she attempted to hide her lie." Using this weak pretext, take a cab home, Anna remarked icily. My resolution was demonstrated. I growled to myself as I saw Anna drive away and vanish into the night. We're both completed, aren't we? I suppose you value other men more than I do because you're leaving. And I'll see you in the ACT. I'll be able to observe firsthand how you manage your friend's emergency and the resulting uncertainty and rage. I had placed a GPS tracker in her a few days prior, and it propelled me onward. After driving down the road, I arrived up at the entrance to a dilapidated area where I posed as a buddy of Henry Gray's, requesting his address from others, and after some time I identified the precise spot. And when I knocked on the rusty iron door, I heard, "Who was Anna's voice?" I could tell right away that the door wasn't soundproof. Was she there? I remained silent and kept knocking until the door opened. Anna, who had hardly cooked for me in the previous 5 years, was standing there with a spatula and an apron. She was preparing food for another man with her hair tied up when she noticed me. Her face became white, and she stammered, "George, how did you find me?" My rage took over my thoughts, so I shoved her away and rushed inside. And the man I had seen so many times in the pictures was there. He had no shirt on, and his hair was still soaking wet, most likely from taking a shower. He's having stomach issues, so I'm just trying to help him. Anna tried to explain, but I was so furious that I could hardly understand what she was saying. My feelings, which had been suppressed for days, exploded when you left me to cook for him by the side of the road. Who is your husband, me or him? Our divorce isn't as horrible as his stomach. George, H. Henrik's opening remarks were an obvious provocation. I've heard a lot about you, and I couldn't stand it any longer. I hit Henry as I lunged at him, my fists flying. "You're hooking up with my wife," Henry repeatedly retorted. "I've known Anna longer than you. What do you even count as if you hadn't interfered? I would have been with her now." Anna sobbed and yelled, "Stop! Stop thinking that George Henry and I are the same thing. He's sick. Stomach issues. I was about to lose it, and I would have struck him more forcefully if I had come a bit later. It's not like that. Would you have shared a bed with me? So why am I still taking a shower and experiencing this stomach pain? Henry is sneering at me and glaring at me. You've seen enough, so why don't you move aside and make your bed more comfortable?" Anna never imagined Henry would be more disgusting than any hotel, and I felt a knot in my throat. So obvious that the three of us were brought in when a neighbor contacted the police. When the handcuffs clicked shut, Henry and I both suffered facial and physical injuries, and I was disappointed. My choice was made, and I glared at Anna's face while slamming my wedding ring against it. After leaving the police station there at her divorce, "I don't want you anymore." There was an intense tension in the air, and I scowled at Henry, who sneered at me with his eyes and a face bloated with bruises. I looked at Anna, who was standing next to Henry, and was filled with a smug satisfaction that you had lost. I said icily, "I'll give you one last chance. Come home with me." And she looked worried for him. Anna, relationships with him. I wanted to see who she would pick now that everything had reached this point. Anna hesitated and wavered for a while, but ultimately she remained by Henry's side, which warmed my heart. Died with everything exposed, and Anna stopped bothering to go back home. As I prepared to depart for France at the end of the month, I gradually packed up my belongings and gave the house to the real estate agent to be sold as soon as possible. I was disgusted by the bed in the room. I had given her more than enough over the years, and I was exhausted. The day before I left, my love, which had been abundant, withdrew. Visited Anna's grandmother at the nursing home. She was a sweet, elderly woman. Spent a lot of time talking to her, and I paid for her care for an additional year. I thought this was the final gesture of generosity I would give after 5 years of marriage. While traveling to France, I got a picture and a note from the Mr. George, the moving firm, packed Miss Anna's belongings, and brought them to the address indicated in the picture. A heap of her possessions in a small, outdated corridor, I also received the divorce documents along with them, and I blocked the unknown number that kept giving me images of Anna in the kitchen, followed by the two of them in bed, both nude, and I closed my eyes as the jet took off. Refusing to focus on the breakdown of this marriage, all went fine when they arrived in France. I was making steady progress, renting a large apartment, and even adopting the adorable puppy I had always desired. 6 months after I started to slowly but surely mend, I noticed Anna standing outside. She had shed a significant amount of weight, and her under-eye bags were thick. She appeared exhausted. She had always been so self-conscious about her appearance, but now she seemed almost completely different from the delicate woman I had knew. Like a stranger, yet I felt nothing but apathy. She hurried up to me as soon as she noticed me leaving the building. Attempting to take hold of my hand, George's grandma died, and I have no family left. She cried for a time before collapsing to the ground when her voice broke. I was sorry for the good old lady's death, George. Please forgive me. Describe how I calmly looked at her, and that what's done is now irrelevant. I had voluntarily spoiled her for 5 years, so there's no point in regretting it now. I've given her everything, and she smiled and appreciated it. Now that I'm worn out, I'll let her go. But she followed me to France in an attempt to prevent me from being seen by those in the company, since I didn't want any rumors to spread tomorrow. So I drove her home, and while I was driving, Anna attempted to take my hand. Few times, but I continued to draw away, and for a brief instant I recalled how, "What specifically do you want, Anna?" That's how I used to grasp for her hand. "Do you want me to sign another copy of the divorce papers that I've already given you, Anna? I'm choking on them." "George, please listen," she said with her teeth. "I was just going to cook for him once I remained. I'll admit that I used to admire Silent Henry, a classmate from college, but that was a while ago. Maybe Anna heard my determination and raised her voice. He experienced a flare-up of a stomach ailment that day and begged me for assistance. But we didn't, George. I beg you. Please, let's start afresh. I couldn't do anything. Help, but Sneer's merely preparing food for him. Are you implying that you went solely to prepare food, or was there anything else you might have done to explain why Anna froze for a brief while? Her eyes fluttering, unable to meet mine, I pulled out my phone, and I looked through her private anonymous account. I outlined everything using the pictures of her kissing Henry on their Nepalese trek and the thorough documents she had preserved about their history. Do you think I'm a fool in front of her, Anna? Do you realize how much I was staring? I left work early to buy you the Louis Vuitton bag, and I'm looking forward to seeing your shocked face on our 5th anniversary. I prepared all of your favorite meals just for you because you had been dreaming about it and even looked up the styles that girls like. I couldn't help but feel as though my voice was coldly piercing her heart, turning everything into a total betrayal. How useless my true love was when you chose to pretend to be on a business trip that you had previously made your choice. Anna's cheeks became pale and her lips a little open as I truly didn't think about it, she whispered, as she sought to defend herself in private. My tone was filled with incredulity and mocking guilt when you told me that you were too thrilled to notice all I had prepared. Anna's eyes filled with sadness and started to redden. No, George, I love you. I just experienced a brief novelty from you, Henry, but as it passed, I found I was still thinking about you. She looked at me almost desperate, her eyes beseeching me to give me another chance to make things right. Was an aspect of her that I'd never seen before. Her customary majesty and pride had entirely disappeared, but she had crossed. I couldn't help but smile icily at a phrase I couldn't ignore. But it's too late. Offered you an opportunity, but you didn't appreciate it. Please stop doing these pointless things. I don't want my voice anymore. Was unwavering and resolute, and Anna stood there as though she had been hit by a thunderclap, her eyes vacant and unfocused. You love me so much that how could you possibly not want me anymore? How can you just say no like that in her voice when you treated me so kindly before? I shivered, revealing the fear and bewilderment she was harboring, and I regarded her icily as she refused to acknowledge. In my heart, the truth and her struggle were as obvious as day, but they weren't that she was unable to let go of me, or that she loved me so much. It was just that I'd been too kind to her, and now that I treated, she came to find me. But it was clear that she hadn't had it easy with her, and she couldn't accept it. For the first 2 months of the previous 6 months, Henry, everything had been wonderful. Together, they were inseparable, engaging in various affectionate activities. But gradually, Anna began to understand Henry's position was far away. She had to rush home from work at the end of each shift to cook and clean, in addition to going to work. When her grandmother went away, Henry refused to assist her, and even sold her upscale possessions for money. In that moment, Anna completely regretted taking the nursing home's remaining half-year's payment. All she desired to return to me, only to discover that our house was no longer. She hurried to my company after her property sold. only to find out that I'd been moved till she realized that she had lost not just her grandmother, but also me when she traveled to France for business. I looked at her and spoke calmly, but I was adamant that we would part ways amicably. I motioned for her to leave George, saying, "Don't come back into my life. You're free now. Have nowhere else to go." And I became irritated when I saw Anna hesitate. My brows furrowed angrily. "Do you wish to remain here?" She appeared frail in the low light, George. "You weren't like this before I disregarded her and turned to return inside after only 3 months." But Anna Her's voice was clear. "For the first time in a long time, you're paying your rent." 3 months ago, I noticed a spark in her eyes. She felt she might win me back by not being too lengthy or too short. That all she needed to do was give me a chance to comfort her after all the arguments we had had. But I had already decided to let her give up permanently. But Anna persisted from the moment she prepared new meals every day, and I had thrown away the wedding ring in the most visible place. Like a lovely wife, she would get my clothing ready in the morning and would accompany me on my walks with the dog. Loving the twists? Hit subscribe now for more amazing stories. Had to work late, so she took the dog out for me and gave me dinner. Everything appeared to have went back to normal. With the exception of one thing. The roles were inverted. She reasoned that with all these she may make an attempt to regain my love. But it was all a lie. We received our first significant order in the market in France. But it was in vain. It was a significant turning point for the business and a high point in my career on the day of the celebration. The company had a grand banquet late into the night, and while everyone was ecstatic and proud, I was by myself at home watching over the cold food, when a female coworker who was only a friend gave me a ride home as she was leaving. More than a straightforward act of mutual assistance. But in Anna's eyes, that was when I first noticed new ladies yelling at Anna. Rushed out in front of me, her gaze riveted on me as she spoke with my coworker. "Where were you today? I couldn't locate you at the office. Were you out on a date with someone else?" she inquired angrily. Gave my coworker a nasty look after she inquired, noticing that I was looking aloof, and I disregarded her, continuing to, "I'm sorry, George. You've changed." My coworker Anna sobbed, her face twisted in agony, her voice trembling. Don't imagine, I thought she was ill at the time. And I was like, "You're divorced, you have no influence over my life. I blatantly told you the truth. Do I have to? I'll let you know where I travel, since, unlike you, I don't need to use a chicken feather as an imperial decree." When I publicly made fun of her, Anna became deflated and forced a dry laugh, her voice cracking as she said, "I finally get how you feel, George. This is what it's like to be both hopeful and disappointed, while waiting for it hurts to interrupt someone who is alone. I felt nothing at all. Have you finished? I just left for supper, and I never had you wait for me." Another word. I turned and went inside in the middle of the night. Anna was still crying quietly, but I didn't offer any consolation. I was no longer moved by her weeping, and I stopped caring about her suffering after relocating to France. I made the decision to run my first half marathon because I wanted to push myself without. Despite my trepidation, I signed up because I felt compelled to prove something, even if it was more about participation than victory. Wanted to rediscover that energetic me again. And as I stood at the starting line, I experienced a mixture of anxiety and, when the starting pistol went off, I threw my arms wide and raced off. Enthusiastic, but unsure of how long I could go. I worked hard to strengthen every muscle in my body, yet my legs felt like they were flying, and I managed to finish at the top. Anna had been riding her bike with me, and the outcome of 100 even startled me. She rushed over to give me water when I crossed the finish line, her eyes wide with shock and awe, and her voice sounded bursting with enthusiasm. "George, you're incredible. I didn't even know you were involved in this." I automatically avoided her touch as she excitedly offered me the drink and embraced me. One of my coworkers leaned in to gossip about George, to which I retorted sharply, "My coworker, an ex-wife with a murky history with her first love," laughed awkwardly, ignored Anna, and took a bottle from one of the volunteers instead of the water she gave me. I then joined my coworkers to rejoice. She chased me and grabbed my shirt hem. Her voice, "George, please stop being so mean. I truly regret it. I'll be with you wherever you go." I snatched my shirt out of her hand, interrupting her since I didn't want to hear her regrets on such a lovely day. It doesn't matter anymore because 3 months have gone by so swiftly. Anna wanted to try one last time to win me back, so I gazed at her waiting when the visa deadline arrived on time. The bed was charming in every way, but I was really disgusted by it. Henrik's remarks that your bed is far more comfortable than any hotel bed pierced made me cringe since it was so thoughtfully laid out. The scar that was piercing my heart had healed, but there would always be, please stop reminding me of that anguish with Mark and Anna's acts. Please don't make me feel inferior by changing the sheets on my bed. Sent you here to assist you in seeing that we cannot turn back. Is there truly no hope left for us? I examined the I once loved you very much woman, and as soon as you betrayed me, it was over if I reunited with you. I would never be able to forget what you did, and I would never be able to treat you the same way I did before. Nevertheless, I'm willing to live with that. Anna nodded frequently in response, but I'm not able to. Please don't break my heart. Anna cried out, and her tears fell freely. I apologize. I shouldn't have done it. She walked away, and as I watched her exhausted body slowly fade, I picked up the ring. 2 months later, I finally put an end to my failing marriage by throwing it out the window from the bedside table. Heard from a mutual acquaintance, George, that Anna is having problems. The news is all over it. Henry is a con artist who uses his good looks to defraud ladies out of their money after. After waiting more than a month for an opportunity, Anna returned to China and discovered the truth. After she stabbed Henry, Anna was taken into custody by the police, and Henry is still in the intensive care unit. Before adding George, the buddy paused. Would you like to return and see if I am currently pursuing a girlfriend? I said with a smile, adding that she wouldn't be happy if she found out. A new day begins tomorrow. If you think I made the right decision, hit that like button. And if you want more jaw-dropping stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.